Yo, look. This song is dedicated to most of the people that have lost their lives. Syria, Libya, Palestine, Egypt, Bosnia, loads. My man, I got a disgusting feeling inside. How can we watch our millions die? Perishing ways that we don't know why. Millions of kids starving to survive all over the world, all over the globe. While we sit warm and they all sit cold. Feeling like some storm and rain. Palestine, Egypt and Bahrain, all occupied by while we fund wars, murderers daily. Look at the facts and try to me I'm wrong. If I never had a bonnet, I wouldn't write this song. From the bottom of my heart I'm stating a fact. Now you tell me who's under attack. Is it you or is it me? Or is it the victims that we don't see that are fading away all overseas? Thanks to the British media, none of this shit is
Aurten, irailaren lauan mundu bat erakundean Sahar Francisekin elkartu ginen. Sahar Francis, Prisoner Support and Human Rights Associationeko zuzendaria da, eta Israeleko kartzeletan dauden presoen alde lan egiten du. Bere erakundearen lanari buruz, baita Palestinako atxilotuen egoari buruz ere hitz egin genuen.
Maybe one day you can find it in your heart and realize there's innocent people dying every day and every night. While we sit back and complain about how we got a shitty life, but when I think about them I say cause it brings tears to my eyes. I know certain people live in a very rough life, but do you have soldiers and guns waiting for you outside? No, you haven't, nor did I think so. So before you talk about your rough life, please get your facts right.
What is Addameer Prisoner Support and Human Rights Association?
Actually, we're a Palestinian NGO that was established at the end of the first Intifada in the 1991-92 to help the Palestinian political prisoners who were arrested under the Israeli occupation in the military court system and in the civil system. So our main program was offering free legal aid for the prisoners and their families. And by the years we developed as well the documentation and monitoring for the conditions of the daily life of the prisoners and the advocacy and lobbying work around the issue of the prisoners, as well the raising awareness and the training in relation of human rights of Palestinian prisoners. After the establishment of the Palestinian Authority, we also started to represent political prisoners that they were arrested by the Palestinian Authority in the occupied territories as well.
And what are main aims of the work of your organization?
Of course, currently there's 6,300 Palestinian prisoners in the Israeli prisons. So as I said, we mostly offer them legal aid on their cases, but also we follow their daily conditions to see if they are subjected for human rights violations. So we document these violations and we file complaints in the local level in the Israeli judicial system, also in the international level in the UN, and we do lobbying on the level of the EU and the UN different agencies that are responsible for human rights protection, like the Committee Against Torture, the Committee Against the Working Group on the Arbitrary Detention, and so on. Our work actually is mainly raising the awareness on the issue of the prisoners in order to lead for the release of these prisoners, whether through legal procedures or whether the political discourse.
If you can describe us the situation of Palestinian prisoners.
Actually, they suffer from lots of different violations. The violations starts from the first moment of the arrest, when the soldiers comes after midnight to arrest the detainees. They beat them, kick them with the weapons. They sometimes do strip searches for these detainees, especially the women, in order to insult and humiliate them. And it continues in the interrogation center with serious torture under the interrogation period that in some cases it could last for 60 days or 70 days or 90 days even without charges under interrogation. The torture in interrogation can include sleep deprivation, tying in very painful position, shaking, that it was banned actually by the Israeli High Court, but since a couple of years we feel there's another use of the method of shaking in less percent than it was used before, but still it's a very dangerous method of torture. One detainee died back in 1995 out of torture, and this is why the High Court, after 5 years in 99, said that the shaking is illegal method of torture. It could also include ban the lawyers' visits, which mean the legal counsel for the detainees for up till 60 days actually in the time of interrogation. In the prisons they face lack of health treatment, proper health treatment. Last year, 4 detainees died of lack of health treatment in the Israeli prisons. They face isolation, solitary confinement that could be for several years against some detainees and prisoners. It could include ban on family visits. There are hundreds of Palestinian prisoners that they didn't visit their families for several years. Sometimes there's daily attacks on their sections in the name of security searches that the special police units in the Israeli prison system implement in the prisons, like saying that they search for illegal stuff hidden with the prisoners. And in these security searches, they will be attacking the prisoners sometimes with water pipes or with with cover bullets or with gas tires, which in some cases cause serious damages to the prisoners. The prisoners were involved in the last 3 years with hunger strikes. Several times they went in a general hunger strike or individual hunger strike, opposing the policies of the system of the prison and demanding to improve their rights and their life conditions on the daily level, and against the policy of administrative detention. Administrative detention is arresting anyone actually on secret information for up till 6 months that they can renew it indefinite. It's a harsh tool of detention actually. This year the administrative detainees were involved in 63 days of hunger strike actually that unfortunately was ending without any serious result. The total number of the detainees was increasing in the last 2 months with a huge number. More than 1,000 additional prisoners were arrested in the last 2 months because of the assault on Gaza and the political circumstances and the mass demonstrations that took place in the occupied territories against the military assault on Gaza.
Can you tell us more about children's detainee and prisoners torturing?
Actually, the Palestinian children would be treated as the same as the adults when it comes for torture, ill treatment, beatings, sexual harassment, and the other violations, isolation, ban on family visits. All these restrictions and violations are also committed against the children under the Israeli military system and the prison system. What was unique also in the case of the Palestinian child detainees, the fact that Israel actually didn't consider those between age 16 and 18 for long years, since the beginning of the occupation actually till 2012, the Israeli system was referring to a Palestinian child as less than 16 years old. And all those who were between 16 and 18, they were treated as adults. Just in 2012, the Israeli military system changed the definition of the child, and now it's 18. But still, this change is not enough in order to offer legal protection, full protection actually, to these child detainees. And if you compare with the Israeli justice system when it comes for children, there's a huge discrimination between the military system that is applying to the Palestinian children through the military courts and the civil system that applies in the civil courts to the Israeli criminal children, where in the Israeli system, for example, the imprisonment is the last resort that the court will impose as a punishment. First, they have to check whether there's a rehabilitation program, educational program, how they can punish the child, but in a way that it will support him, to rehabilitate and to be recruited again in his community in an ordinary way. While in the military court, the imprisonment is the only punishment that these children would be facing. So they would be imprisoned for throwing stone, for example, for 8 months, 1 year, and being held in prisons where there's no education, no rehabilitation, no social or psychological treatment offered for them. In the last raids and the last mass arrest campaign, especially in East Jerusalem, they also were using the issue of transferring. If they want to release these children on condition till the end of the trial, they will enforcing the family to take the children from their homes and to be hosted in another neighborhood. Sometimes the family would have no relatives in this neighborhood, so they would be enforced to rent a new house in order to guarantee that the child could be. And this is in order to put more oppression on the families and more restrictions, and actually the fines that they impose as well as part of the sentence. It's not just the real imprisonments. They charge them with fines as well to be paid to the system with huge amount of money that sometimes the families cannot afford, which means the child will be staying more in imprisonment because they don't have the money to pay the fine.
How exactly did the military conflict, the last military conflict, have an influence on the situation on Palestinian prisoners and in general on Palestinian population?
Beside the mass arrests campaign that I referred to that increased in the time of the military assault, also the Israeli prison system punished the Hamas prisoners and the left party prisoners by imposing ban on family visits, total ban. So actually since the 12th of July, all the prisoners from the Hamas party, Islamic Jihad and other left parties are not able to meet their families. They also restricted the TV channels, especially the Arab TV channels that they can get inside the prisons. They reduced the amount of the food that they offer them every month from 6 kilogram to 3 kilogram. And such actually violations and punishments that they usually impose in such a military bad situation.
What kind of campaigns your association organizes?
Actually, we have an open campaign against administrative detention, for example. We're opposing torture and administrative detention as such. So we have a continuous campaign that will include publishing individual cases, case studies, short documentary films that could be used, organizing such speaking tours with international organizations like Mundubat, SODePaz, and other international organizations in European countries or in the United States or in other countries, lobbying the EU, the UN, as I said, so raising awareness mostly about the issue of the prisoners. And in the time of the hunger strike also we had a special campaign to support the hunger strikers.
How did it look like work of the association in this last month during Israel-Palestinian fights?
Actually, as an organization, we faced very difficult time even before the military assault because of the hunger strike and the activity on the hunger strike. So, and it's not just against Addameer. The Israeli occupation actually attacks lots of human rights organizations and charitable organizations that try to help the local community to resist and to oppose the Israeli violations. So, for example, because in the last couple of years, the issue of the prisoners were in the central of the resistance activities, offices like Addameer were raided, where some of our staff members were arrested. Our lawyers were banned for several months from visiting these prisoners in the Israeli prisons, and so on. So actually there's different forms of how the Israeli occupation forces can restrict the work of the human rights NGOs in the occupied territories. It depends on how much they are affected by our work as NGOs.
How do you think does the world truly take care of Palestine situation?
We should differentiate between two levels. There's the civil society in the international level, which I think there's more and more support to the Palestinian cause, especially in the time of the assault on Gaza. We saw that there's much more support coming from the solidarity groups and the civil society trying to initiate new solidarity activities with the Palestinian people, especially through the PDS campaign, for example, the boycott, divestment and sanctions. Unfortunately, on the political decision-making level, no, it's very disappointing. There was a huge silence in the time of the military assault on Gaza, especially from Europe, where we expect much more from the European countries. We all know that the United States is totally supporting the Israeli arguments, but we were expecting that Europe were supposed to put more pressure on Israel in order to stop these war crimes and crimes against humanity that they were committing in Gaza in the last 52 days. And it was very disappointing to see how the European countries in the Human Rights Council meeting in the UN, instead of supporting the decision to compose the fact-finding mission in order to put an end for the Israeli immunity on the international level, they absented from the vote and they didn't support the resolution. So I think there's a huge difference becoming very clear between the civil society and the political leaders in the international level.
And in your point of view, why they behave like that?
Because political interests are totally different from the public interest of the people. I mean, there's economical relations, political relations, and ideology behind why to support Israel as a colonialist state in the Middle East, I think, and it's not new. And I believe that there's also a fear, maybe, or they are trying bring it to the issue of to connect it with the international war against terror. That now they want to justify it with what's going on in the region, whether in Iraq or Syria. So it's more than one element, I think.
During Israel-Palestine negotiations, which were made with the help of Egypt, did some new consensus about Palestinian prisoner come up?
Yes, the Palestinian negotiators in the negotiations informed the civil society that they were discussing and trying to bring the issue of the prisoners, especially those who were rearrested in the time of the war. Israel rearrested, for example, 62 of the prisoners that they were released in the exchange deal in 2011 with the Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit. They were rearrested in the time of the assault on Gaza. So the Palestinian delegation actually were trying to put the case of these prisoners with the case of the administrative detainees and the Palestinian parliamentarians who were arrested in the time of the war, unfortunately without much success. So we were told that they will try to discuss it in the coming future, because the Egyptian side invited the two delegations to convene again in 1 month to go back for negotiating the airport and the port and other issues. So we hope that the issue of the prisoners would be brought again in the negotiations.
And would you like to add something for Basque listeners?
Yes, of course. I think there's much similarities, especially on the issue of the prisoners. So I'm sure that the Basque audience will totally understand what I'm talking about when I'm describing the torture, the ill treatment, the suffer of the families of these political prisoners. And we want also our prisoners back home with their families. So I would invite every individual to show solidarity with the Palestinian people through the boycott, divestment, sanctions, so we can put an end to the Israeli immunity and guarantee justice for all the Palestinian people with our full independence and self-determination.
Sahar Francisekin, Palestinako Prisoner Support and Human Rights Associationeko zuzendariarekin hitz egin dugu. Eskerrik asko eta hurrengo arte.
How can we watch our millions die? Perishing ways that we don't know why. Millions of kids starving to survive all over the world, all over the globe. While we sit warm and they all sit cold. Feeling like some storm and rain. Palestine, Egypt and Bahrain, all occupied by while we fund wars, murderers daily. Look at the facts and try to tell me I'm wrong. If I never had a point, I wouldn't write this song. From the bottom of my heart, I'm staying. In fact, now you tell me who's under attack. Is it you or is it me? Or is it the victims that we don't see that are fading away all overseas? Thanks to the British media, none of this shit is televised. Otherwise, most of you morons would have realised the truth behind the curtain. Who's been paying and who's been working all their life and who's deceiving, feeding us lies ever since we were breathing. Since day one, we were told to believe in the bullshit that they've been feeding into a nightmare, fantasize like we're dreaming. Real talk, wake up, open your mind, open your eyes and tell me if it's fine. For the bloodshed while we sit back, relax and we drink and wine. There's people dying, feeling pain, rage, unlike you and I. Maybe one day you can find it in your heart and realize there's innocent people dying every day and every night. While we sit back and complain about how we got a shitty life, but when I think about them I say cause it brings tears to my eyes. I know certain people live in a very rough life, but do you have soldiers and guns waiting for you outside? No, you haven't, nor did I think so. So before you talk about your rough life, please get your facts right, and then we can talk, bro. What happened to peace and prosperity? It seems like we're all living dishonestly. So many countries being invaded without apologies. Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq. That's just some of the Muslim countries that are being ripped apart while we sit back, read the papers and we laugh. But it's okay, we see how long the laughter lasts. And fuck all you pagans thinking that this is a joke. But if you feel what I say, then I got you, bro. I speak for the people living in shitty conditions, for the people fighting for freedom with ambition, where the people standards wanna abolish the racism, making the world a better place and saying no to terror. But before you go ahead, make a start with a man in the mirror. I hope that you can understand exactly what I'm saying, or the point I'm trying to make about all the people in pain. The shit they don't wanna exploit on the news, cause they know in advance you feel traumatized by the truth behind what goes on behind everyone's eyes. See, the life that we're living is fucked up in disguise. Did you know your taxes are killing civilians, investing on heavy armory with so many billions? What if they used all that money in the UK? We could get rid of poverty with the taxes you paid.